everyone, and thank you very much for coming back. If you were tuning in earlier, we apologize for all the technical difficulties, but we are back and better than ever. Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Fauzi and you are watching Off the Record. Now, Off the Record is our weekly live show which has been happening every Saturday at 8 p.m. for the last 4 Saturdays, where we invite guests to answer your questions about COVID-19 and any other related concerns you might have. Now, before we go any further, do us a favor and give us a like if you enjoyed this video, and remember to share the link to our show with everyone you know. Now, last week, I spoke to Minister for Finance and co-chair of the Multi-Ministry Task Force, Mr. Lawrence Wong, about Singapore's efforts against COVID-19. As always, if you missed that or any of the previous episodes, feel free to check out the recordings after this stream. Now, today, we have 2 very special guests over to talk about another important topic, and that is caring for your mental health during COVID-19. And up first, we have Principal Psychologist at the Therapy Room, Dr. Geraldine Tan.
Hello, Fauzi.
Hello. Thank you very much for being here with us. Now, for everyone tuning in, we want this to be an interactive session. So if you have any questions for Dr. Tan, please leave them in the comments and we will compile them to be asked throughout the entire stream, all right? But to get us started this evening, Dr. Tan, Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I get asked all the time until I don't know where to start, right? So I deal with the whole spectrum of psychology. So from the little ones right up to the adults. And then for the little ones, they are learning disorders, behavioral issues, and the adults, all the clinical issues also, including the learning disorders. Yeah, so the work that we do, it has exponentially increased during this period of time. Yes, and so counseling would be a major part of what I do, and yeah, sometimes I feel like I grow roots in my chair because I'm seated in my chair all the time, and it's not like we talk all the time; the clients talk all the time.
Yeah. So this time round is opposite.
Yes.
You're talking.
Oh, I'm talking.
Yes,
okay.
yes. Okay, but perfect. I mean, you're the perfect person to answer some of the questions that we have right here. So, Dr. Tan, are you ready?
Let's go.
Okay, perfect. The first question is, how would you define mental wellness and what does being mentally well mean?
So mental wellness, so we look at mental health. Mental health covers basically 3 components. The social component, the social health.
Okay.
The mental health, which is what we call the psychological health, but mental capacity, mental health, mental functioning, and the emotional health. So this basic 3 different components, and whether it's well or not is whether we can actually think, feel, and do, and if any parts is not feeling too good.
Fair enough. Okay, you mentioned about having a lot more work during this pandemic, right?
Yes.
Maybe specifically in relation to the pandemic, how does it affect mental health? And what are some of the trends that you have observed?
Yeah, so one big thing is, just now as I was talking about the emotional well-being, right? And emotional health. So the emotional health has been really kind of affected by COVID because COVID hit us and it was a crisis. So our whole being was just, shocked into like an imbalance. Yeah, so the emotions are being affected. And one of the big things that is occurring now is a lot of people come to us with anxiety.
Okay.
High tension, they're worried all the time. And it's not only for COVID itself, it's not only because of the pandemic, but it is a result of. So it's a consequence of. So it could be family issues, it could be work issues, it could be just even themselves, because a lot of reflection and self-reflection is going on these days. So their emotions are affected, their mental capacity is being affected. If you are so worried, they cannot function.
Right.
Yeah, and then needless to say, in this climate, social health is definitely being affected. Yeah.
Okay. There's this thing called COVID-19 fatigue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of it. What exactly does it mean?
It's the pandemic fatigue. So COVID-19 is just the disorder itself, but it's a pandemic fatigue. And it is very prolonged. So earlier I said crisis hit us. We expected it to blow over like
Right.
any crisis. And then we came into this year and then we're like, oh, you mean it's not ending? Why is it not ending? And the dragginess of it just drags our mood down. We're so exhausted from it. That's why it's fatigue, right?
Yeah.
And we don't know where we are going with this. There seems to be no light at the end of the tunnel. Plus the fact, every time our hopes are raised, it gets crushed. Yeah, I mean, the very classic one would be like the Hong Kong to Singapore air travel bubble. Twice over, it got crushed by no fault of anyone, you know, but that's where a lot of people go, yes, yes, yes. And even for those that did not buy the tickets, right, they are looking and hoping that it goes through. So it gives a little bit more liberation, like, okay, yes, I think, you know, it's going to be all better now, but it's not.
Well, hopefully, with more people getting vaccinated, there is still a little bit of light coming at the end of the tunnel, so that's really good. Now, this question is about young people. I think specifically people who are watching this, I think they're curious.
Yes.
Are young people actually more susceptible to mental health issues? I think the conversation about mental health has definitely picked up with social media during the pandemic. Do you think young people are a little bit more susceptible to this?
So young people, can you define the age for me?
I mean, maybe youth and teens, maybe.
Teens and youth, so up to 35. So
maybe,
youth is until 35.
Maybe my age, around 32,
I don't know
35.
how old you are. Okay, so I would say that each age group have their own challenges.
Okay.
So the youth are going through a lot of different changes, a lot of different transitions. So they will feel a lot of challenge during this period of time,
Right.
because they go through a lot of life events. So life events, we know, so in psychology, every life event brings a lot of stress.
Okay.
Yeah, and the stress stays with us until it blows over. So for these youths, teens, they're going through a lot of changes. So for those that are, so take our secondary school population, right? So Sec 2s, they have, they are going through that choosing their subjects, their combi and everything, and COVID hit. So now everything is a bit disrupted because their learning styles, everything are different. The mode of learning is different, and then those that have had to take O levels, A levels, suddenly, you know, the world already stressful. The world would turn upside down, you know, by the entire. I don't know, this entire system, right, that had to change with the pandemic, you know, and then the choice that they have to make, which secondary school, which JC, which poly, now suddenly everything gets disrupted.
Oh, I never realized how important these milestones are in our lives, right? Maybe for me, I've taken it for granted how much that, you know, these are big parts of our lives and we just live through them, but the kids now have to go through them during a pandemic. Okay, that's actually a very interesting thought. Now, I think with that, how can youth take care of their mental health during these trying times?
I think the big thing is please disconnect from your devices. And I'm looking straight at the camera now.
Yes, tell them.
But please follow the show and because it's good material,
content. Yes.
in it. But I realize so many of them, and I'll clarify. They would have 2 to 3 screens on when they are doing.
I'm guilty. I'm very guilty of that.
Just this afternoon, my little boy he's not so little, he's a teen. He's supposed to do his work. He has one screen on to do his work. And then I heard him talking. So I went in to check. He had another screen on and it had this cord on it. And I was like, who are you talking to? You know, and I was trying to listen, and on the other side there was no sound. It was just a lot of like random noises, home noises. And then he had his phone by his side, and I was like, oh my gosh, how many devices do you have? And a lot of teens, a lot of youths are very comfortable being on their devices, right? And they don't go out. So they are we are so socially distant.
Right.
We are forced to be with all the masks and stand 1 meter apart, don't talk in the lifts, don't talk in the trains. And then suddenly you're just stuck at home and
Right.
you're not connecting, face to face with another person. Yeah. And we don't realize how important it is. Yeah. So for the youth, that's the first thing that I would say, although a bit neggy, but yeah.
I must take that advice. I must take that advice. Okay, we do have a bit of a viewer question here from Kezia Tan. It's a little bit out of the topic of school.
Okay.
Maybe this one is about for those people who are a little bit older.
Okay.
All right. The question is, what are some things organizations can do to help with mental health in a workplace setting? Maybe, I mean, nowadays a lot of people are working from home,
Yes.
for example, maybe in that situation, also possibly in the future.
Yep.
Especially when we get out of this pandemic, are there things that the companies and organizations can do to promote a mental well-being?
Yep. So because with the change from work from office to work from home, there is a huge shift, and there are a lot of other dynamics. So it's not that the workplace has no work dynamics, but the home environment have a different set of dynamics. So I always encourage the employers to find out the home environment.
Oh.
Yeah, because sometimes they have children running at home, young children running at home. So it might be very difficult for them to turn on the mic because
Right.
the kids are, screaming behind, or they're practicing the piano. As I was having one session and I could hear, your kid is playing piano behind you. Yeah, practicing.
Oh,
But
man.
they try to put the dampener already.
Right.
Yeah. So please, find out a little bit more before faulting them for not turning on the video or not turning on the mics,
Okay.
And because in the workplace, we can cite the person can cite you quite easily. At home, you cannot cite anyone. So a text would be great. Weekly meetings. If it's too much, at least monthly meetings.
Right. Okay. What about like maybe in the future, once we get out of this pandemic and people start coming to the office, mental health is such an important topic that people are talking about, and it's definitely something that we will carry on with talking about in the future. Is there any advice for that?
So the whole checking in on the emotional well-being
Okay.
part, because when you can see the person, you can look at the person and say, hey, you don't look so good today. Yeah, but when someone is at home and very far away, then you need to rely on a text or them communicating to them that they can, approach you at any time if
Right.
they have an issue.
Okay. That's good advice. All right. We've got the next question here. Where can youth, we're going back to youth again, where can youth seek help for distress and mental health conditions?
Okay.
I think this is a good, important question. I think most of the time people seem to, know that something exists, but they don't know exactly where.
So we have a few hotlines that are already set up. The National Healthcare hotline numbers, and you can easily go on their website to check it. Beyond the Label, I think, have also set up something
Yes.
for them. Chat at Escape.
Okay.
Yeah, so right on the top floor, if I'm not wrong, they have free services for the youths. Yeah, so they can just pop in there, no judgment, no questions asked. Singapore Psychological Society also have one site community, and a few of us are on board with reduced fees or pro bono. So you get a whole lot of registered psychologists who are providing reduced fees or pro bono, so the youth can always check out.
Nice. I do have a little note here that actually there is Bell, a Beyond the Label help bot that is actually an avenue for any youths if you're looking to seek for help. That help bot can actually help you out in that sense. All right, we have a next question here. Okay, ooh, interesting. What are some common mental health struggles that Singaporeans face nowadays?
So we have the really big bulk of depression and anxiety. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think even without the pandemic, depression was quite a major issue with
I
many of
see.
our youths. Yeah, high stress level, they have self-injurious behavior, they feel very cornered, they have a lot of existential questions,
Okay.
they don't know which direction. Even those that are beyond the teens, working, they are questioning which direction am I going towards? Why am I working? What's the purpose of my work? Yeah, so it's been quite tough, especially during this period of time where they really cannot see why are they working so hard for.
Right, right. That actually does make sense. Okay, are there any tips in terms of ways we can help manage these struggles?
So I came up with calm. Okay. So C stands for compassion for the self.
Okay.
Yeah, so that needs to be the first thing that we remember, but it's very, very difficult. So I go on to the next one, which is A, acknowledge. Acknowledge that you do have an issue, acknowledge the discomfort in your body, acknowledge like you are, whatever emotions that you have. And then we learn how to deal with them. We learn from the past to deal with, the future. Yeah, so no, we learn from the past so that we know what to do now so that we enhance the future.
Right.
And the last one is M. And I was using it as embrace. So it doesn't start with M,
Close
but
enough.
it sounds like
Yes.
M. Yeah, so embrace help. A lot of people forget to embrace the resources that are around them. So we just listed a whole lot of, helplines and resources that are available, but people forget that they can embrace, and don't feel shy because it is there for a reason. If you feel like, oh, I feel very paiseh, I feel very embarrassed, or I'm going to feel judged that I go and take, a session with someone, then you're doing a disservice to yourself.
There you go. All right. Now we have a question here. Good one. Should I tell anyone that I'm struggling with my mental health?
You not only should tell, you should download to the whoever. I hear this all the time.
Download.
Yeah. I use that because we've all the technology here, right? But we forget to do it, know?
Right.
Yeah. But I hear that all the time that the youth, no matter how old they are, they say, but I don't want to put my burden onto someone else. They are going through, a lot themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't want to do that, please go and seek some professional help then, because we are definitely not burdened by you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think one final question is, how can we fight stigma towards persons with mental health conditions? I think it's a very important question.
It is. And already by us talking about this
Right.
so openly,
Right.
it's a huge step forward. And I think we were discussing earlier, during our little chit chat, that the schools are talking about it more openly also. So the children learn from a very young age that it's okay to talk about, feeling mentally well or being mentally healthy. So that's important.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, things like stigma not only comes from from other people, but also from the self as well.
Yep.
Right. All right.
Yep.
Fantastic. I think we are wrapping it up for
Yes.
Dr. Tan.
Yes.
Any final words
Yes,
before
yes.
you go?
I've prepared a little quote.
We love
but
that.
my favorite, author Maya Angelou.
Okay.
So she says, "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty."
Wow.
Yeah. So isn't it nice?
It is very nice. It is very nice. Okay,
So-
that's your final words.
Yes.
Beautiful. I love that. Ending on a poetic note. Thank you very much, Dr. Tan.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming by. Now, before we move on to chat with our second guest, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you who are tuning in tonight, as well as those of you who have tuned in religiously every week. We really, really appreciate all of your support. Now, thank you. And for those of you who are just joining us here for the first time, you are watching Off the Record. Now, it's also never too late to give us a like and share this video with all your family and friends so more people can catch it, okay? The next guest is going to be an exciting one. All right, today we've been talking about a topic that many people have started discussing recently, and that is about caring for your mental health during this pandemic. All right, to get his take on this topic, we have someone I'm sure many of you will be very familiar with. But before I go to that, I want you all to start thinking of questions, all right? Because we want you to start leaving questions in the comments for our lovely producers behind the scenes to start compiling them, and for me to ask this lovely person who's sitting right there. I'm very excited already, okay? Because we have none other than Adrian Pang, actor and artistic director at Pandemonium. Hi, Adrian.
Hi, Fauzi. Thanks for
Hello,
having
I had
me.
to stall a little bit for time there because it was setting you up. Yes, as I said earlier on, if you have any questions for Adrian, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And to get started, I have a couple of questions. Maybe tell us a little bit more about what you do and how it is related to today's topic about mental health.
Sure. I have been an actor for exactly 30 years. Oh my God. And 10 years ago, my wife Tracy and I set up Pandemonium Theatre Company. So we've been producing theatre for the last 10 years, since 2010. And last year was supposed to be a big year for us because we were going to be celebrating our 10th year as Pandemonium. But then something funny happened to the world, which kind of put a damper on our plans.
Right.
And it's still putting a damper on our plans because theatre has basically come to a standstill over the last year and a half. We're trying in small steps to restart again. Everybody's trying to get their lives back on track. Baby steps.
Exactly that. You did mention a little bit about how the pandemic has affected your work. I think I'm interested in how it has changed in how you work.
Oh my God. I mean, the very definition, I suppose, traditionally of theatre is a group of people congregating in a shared space to experience storytelling absolutely live, and to have a piece of drama unfold before their eyes, performed by live actors.
Right.
But the pandemic has rendered that completely untenable. And so, like so many other sectors and so many other occupations, we've all had to, I hate this word, pivot and digitize. Good. And to digitize theatre, it's an oxymoron.
Right.
But we've all had to embrace it, you know. And even Dr. Tan was saying earlier on, seeing clients had to be online for a little while.
Yes.
Before I continue, every single thing that Dr. Tan said in chatting with you earlier, every single thing resonated with me personally, and I identified with everything that she said.
Amazing.
It's so true. We are, as the human race, going through some weird existential crisis here with this pandemic, where we are not allowed to coexist in the way that we've become accustomed to. I mean, the very fact that we're even sitting in the room together now is a strange thing. We haven't been allowed to do that for the longest time. So it's been really screwing with all our minds. It's certainly screwed with mine for the last year and a half.
I mean, we can all relate. I can relate to that as well. You did talk about, how, things have been digitized. All right. Do you think it's possible that online platforms can truly replace face-to-face interactions. I mean, I don't believe it's possible, but
No, I've been, for ages I resisted it,
Yeah.
and I was fighting against it. The whole
Yeah.
idea of putting theatre online was something that I found ridiculous, and I just fought against it for the longest time.
right.
But and once again, as Dr. Tan was saying, we thought, this in a few months this will be over. We'll get back on track again. No, it just went on and on, month after month after month. There was no end in sight, and even now there doesn't seem to be any kind of real end in sight, because little things start getting in the way. Every week we are surprised by a new something, by a new variant, and so for the longest time I resisted putting any of our theatre online, but
Right.
but it got to a point where we went, oh my God, looks like this is the new norm. I mean, if we don't just kind of try to get on board and embrace it in some way, maybe we're going to be left behind. So in the end, we slightly grudgingly, experimented with it. We did a couple of productions online. I wouldn't say it was the most fulfilling thing in the world for me, certainly. I mean, there were people who were kind enough to tune in, and some people were very, very supportive of it. Some people went, hey, this is all not working for me. Give us the live thing, which I was like, yeah, I want to get back on stage, but we can't, So I think we've all just had to have no choice but to adapt
Yeah.
and try to make the best of it, and just hope for the best.
Fantastic. All right. Now tell us a little bit, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what Pandemonium does. I think specifically in relation to work in addressing mental health conditions.
Right.
Yeah.
Pandemonium, I mean, our mission has always been to tell stories that make people think, make people feel uncomfortable, make people want to debate and argue and even fight over, make people challenge themselves and question themselves about their own beliefs and their own assumptions about their own lives and about the world and about each other. And one major part of those challenging questions have arisen out of productions that we've staged that address mental health issues, and we have staged several productions that grapple with this very thorny issue of mental health. We started out with a production in 2013, which was a musical called Next to Normal, which was about a woman who has been struggling with bipolar disorder all her life.
Right.
And then later on the year, we did another production called Gruesome Playground Injuries, which looked at youth depression, self-harming. We also did a play last year. The first show of our 2020 season was a play by Florenzella called The Sun, which was about a teenager who was experiencing severe depression. And I played the teen's father who could not understand what his teen son was going through. And that was the final show that Pandemonium was able to do before lockdown kicked in. And then theatre just, ground to a halt. And at the end of every performance of that play, I would address the audience and say to them, if anyone out there is experiencing any kind of mental health issue, don't keep it to yourself.
Right.
Seek help. 2 months later, I found myself in that position where COVID just rendered me bedridden.
Oh, okay.
I found myself in a dark place and literally couldn't get out of bed.
Okay.
And I found myself in the kind of deepest depression that I've ever experienced. And so, I'm very comfortable talking about this now. But when I was going through it, I was in denial for a long time.
Okay.
you know, and it really took my family supporting me and rallying around me and saying, listen, you have to practice what you preach.
Right.
You've been telling people to seek help. You have to recognize that you need help now. And what Dr. Tan was saying, calm, being compassionate to yourself, and embracing the fact that you need help, embracing the fact that there is help, is so, so important. And so I finally got off my ass and went and sought help. And since then, I've been seeing a therapist regularly, online at first. But then finally, we were able to sit in the same room and sit there and tell her my stories and cry and shout and scream and all that kind of stuff. I am on antidepressive medication, which I've been taking very faithfully, and it's thankfully it's worked for me. It's working for me. It's still a daily struggle. It's not a one size fits all quick fix for everyone, but the whole thing of self-care. I never understood that concept before, and it's taken COVID to make me realize how damn important it is for everybody to just take a moment at the start of every day just to look after yourself and make sure you're ready to face the world, especially, in fact, how strange the world is right now, to make yourself ready to face this strange world. But yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's been my year.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I didn't expect that. I was like a little taken off guard. We have a comment from Ivan Lim. Falling was so good. Thanks for allowing it to be shown free last year. From Ivan Lim.
Thank you, Ivan. Thanks for watching.
A comment for you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can relate to where you've been. Is there any specific steps that you've taken for yourself that could possibly, help someone out there to incorporate into their own daily lives? So you talk about like seeking help. What are some things that you do on a day-to-day basis to, help you feel better?
Sure.
Yeah.
I got into, and like I said, I've never subscribed to this whole kind of, to me, it was just kind of mumbo jumbo, but I was persuaded to start each day with just a little bit of quiet time.
Right.
Now, once again, Dr. Tan, oh God, everything she said, like I said, resonated with me. The whole thing about it being such slaves to our digital devices. The first thing that I usually do when I open my eyes in bed is to reach for my phone and check my messages and check my emails. And that's just, I just became a prisoner to this thing. So I had to get into this habit of waking up and just ignoring my phone until I had some time to myself. And I would just literally just kind of sit in my bed comfortably and just try and shut out all the white noise that my mind kicked off the day with, and just focus on my breathing. I could never understand how to kind of empty my head. I don't know what that means, because there's always some crap going on inside. But just, even if it's just to focus on my breathing, literally being very conscious of your inhale, your inhaling and your exhaling, and just to be conscious. And then I got into this self-generated routine of kind of physically, in a tactile way, kind of sayanging myself. I would sayang my head, sayang my face, sayang my heart, sayang my stomach, and all the rest of it. It's almost just kind of trying to give myself these kind of positive, tactile, tangible strokes, just to start the day with some self-love.
Right.
Sounds terrible, but sounds wrong. But just loving myself in the best possible way.
Right.
Before I really start the day, And I to be honest, I was a little bit skeptical about that to begin with, but I found that once I got into that routine, I started the day in a much better mood. That like I said, it was just a constant thing of just being self-aware and being very open about talking about how I was feeling, and being very disciplined. Self-love is I think there's something. Yeah, there's definitely something to it. And I'm only discovering that like now because of COVID.
Right.
Thank you, COVID.
I love that. I think we will talk to Dr. Tan later and see if there's any science behind this whole idea of sayanging ourselves, right? We'll speak to her later on. We've got a couple of viewer questions here. One from Doreen Fan. What was your outlet for your mental health during this period of time? Was it something that, you channeled into your work or something?
Well, that's the thing, because, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I think from my early days as a freelance actor, I had somehow conditioned myself to define myself by the work that I was doing. So say, okay, so I'm an actor. So if I'm not acting, if I'm in between jobs, I'm not acting, then I'm not an actor. Then, oh my God, who the hell am I?
Right.
So it was a terrible thing to get into get my mind conditioned into thinking. But at the time, it was almost like a self-challenge, just to keep on working, just to work as much as I could.
Right.
And that mindset has haunted me for the last 30 years, even now at my ripe old age. When I'm in between productions, I feel that anxiety. I feel that almost that I'm nothing. I'm nothing if I'm not working.
Right.
I'm nothing if I'm not playing a role. And so COVID was the worst news for me, because it made me not able to inhabit what was my security of pretending to be somebody else. So for the last year and a half, I've been just clinging on to whatever life raft floated my way.
Right.
But thank God for my family, because they've always been there, and they've always been supportive, and we've always been the kind of family that kind of overshares with one another. There is nothing that we cannot talk to each other about. And I'm very, very, very grateful for that. But I also realize that not every family is that way. Not everyone is in a household where they feel free enough to share what they're feeling. And COVID has been bad news for a lot of people like that, because being stuck at home, especially during circuit breaker, if you're within a not very happy family dynamic, that has, I know, and my therapist kind of shared this with me as well. She said that a lot of people are extra stressed out, extra depressed, because they are forced to face their family all the time. And I suppose going back to the question of the outlet is to find someone to talk to. It's so important to reach out to someone you trust. It might not be your family member, but please find someone that you can vent what you're feeling and share what you're feeling with. It could save your life.
Very, very good advice, actually. And you answered a question that we have from Ismiraudatul Huda Sulaiman, who did ask, how do you communicate your personal struggles with mental health issues to your loved ones? So find someone you trust and start talking about them.
But I mean, it's not easy, especially in an Asian context where we just don't seem, we don't tend to share our deepest, darkest secrets, with your loved ones. And as a father, I can kind of understand where that comes from as an Asian dad.
Right.
If your child comes to you and says, "Oh, I've got a pain in my leg," as a father, "Oh, I'll go and take you to see the doctor. The leg doctor will solve your leg problem," But if your child comes and tell you, "I'm feeling very depressed," that's a bit awkward. Just go and get some exercise, or just look on the bright side of things, kind of thing. I mean, which is not obviously not. I'm not prescribing that, but I think there's a lot of families that just don't know how to deal with an emotional issue or a mental issue, especially when it's still such a stigma in so many societies. But you must find someone to talk to. You just have to.
Yep, absolutely. I think the next one, we wrap it up a little bit nicely with how can we normalize conversations about mental health?
I mean, thankfully, I've been noticing that people are much more willing to have conversations like this, like what we're doing right now, about mental health. Certainly, when I was growing up and going through my own teen nonsense, and looking back now, that teen nonsense was depression. You know, I was going through it even then. 40 over years ago, but I couldn't talk to anybody about it. Not my family. I was kind of awkward talking about it to my friends. But now I notice young people much more willing to share and talk about it, and not be afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's, I think, trying to persuade the older generations that it's a matter of life and death for a lot of cases, because the number of instances of young people not being able to cope with their anxiety or depression and feeling just completely alone and resorting to the worst ways of ending it.
Yeah.
I mean, one life lost through a mental health issue is one life too many. And it's just heartbreaking to know that still happens. So it's trying to persuade more and more people that mental illness is an illness, and just like any illness, you need to seek help to treat that illness.
That's actually, a really good piece. Again, another good piece of advice. Final question. I'm sorry, there was one more question, and that is, how do we fight the stigma towards people with mental health conditions? I think this is one of the biggest problems that we still face as a society, and we need to figure out ways on how to fight this.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
I mean, this whole thing about building a more compassionate society. It's so easy to say,
Yes.
but it really just comes down to, I think, every single individual realizing that we all have to kind of rely on one another, and especially in times of crisis, like what we're going through. You can either manifest the worst sides of yourself by being very protectionist and very selfish and only looking after yourself, hoping to just survive this crisis, or you can just open up your hearts. I know it sounds very kumbaya, but realize that you need people, and if you look after yourself and try to look after your neighbor will hopefully in turn look after you as well.
Right.
And if we don't learn this lesson of mutual reliance during this time of COVID, then we would have gone through this time for nothing. And I personally want to have learned something tangible and positive out of this nightmare we're going through.
Absolutely. Okay, I have a little note here. Again, if you guys are tuning in, Beyond the Label movement, amongst other efforts, is something to help, generate and encourage conversation about mental health in the public space, and that hopefully helps to address the stigma in our society. And again, there's other things other than stigma from outside. There's also stigma from self. So do overcome that by talking to someone about his or her mental health challenges, and if you need to seek help, please do so as well. We have one final question from a viewer, Christian Lim. He says, is mental health wellness something that you see yourself continuing beyond this pandemic?
I think partly because I myself know what it feels like to struggle with a mental health issue. I'm going to be making as much noise about
Right.
it as I can. In fact, that's nicely segueing into me making a little plug
Go for it.
for Pandemoniums' upcoming production. It's a play called The Mother.
Oh.
That was written by Florian Zeller, who also wrote and directed the film The Father. That's recently been.
Yes.
He's very lazy with his titles. The Father, which we produced on stage 3 years ago, and then The Son, which was our last show last year, and then The Mother, which Pandemonium is staging in August. Tickets on sale next week, and it's about mother who is struggling with some severe mental health issues and how her family is struggling to deal with her meltdown.
Right.
Awesome, brilliant play. Janice Coe is going to knock it out of the park.
Nice.
Please come and see it.
There you go. All right. I think with that is it. We have come to the end of this episode of Off the Record, guys. Thank you very much to our guests, Dr. Geraldine Tan and Adrian Pang, for being on the show with us. And of course, thank you guys very much for tuning in. We hope we managed to answer some of your questions. And until next time, bye, guys. Bye.